All right, guys. So welcome to another one of our webinars. Will, is this our second one? Yeah, right. And we have the
Number two.
There we go.
Number two.
Yeah. So thank you guys. Super excited. I see some familiar faces here. I see some people joining for the first time. For those of you that it's your first time, we want to make this as interactive as possible. So please, feel free, drop some questions in the chat. We're here to answer them. Our goal is to provide as much value as possible for you guys. So yeah, we're doing it for the people. Say what's up to the people, Will.
What's up, guys? I just realized I was on mute, but anyway, what's going on? Yeah, so we're here talking about acquisition tonight. That's the subject at hand. We're probably going to run until about 7 o'clock. Please feel free to ask any questions. Raise your little Zoom hand or just pop it into the chat. We will periodically look through it and start to address the questions, etc. No questions dumb, no questions too simple, etc. Whether it's a really high level question, if you have a team, you're scaled, whatever, or you're just starting out and you have basic questions about acquisition, how to build that out, how to tighten up your acquisition process, etc. There's a lot of things that go into acquisition, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But we're going to just be talking about the whole process of acquisition, which is a really big subject in and of itself. Certainly an easier subject today than it was for the last 2 years, because now disposition is a tricky subject, but we'll probably do that on another one of our Zooms or our webinars.
Yeah, guys. So I think acquisition's always a topic of high interest, right? Acquisition is where everything starts. If you don't put the deal under contract, then your chances of making money are zero. And I mean, I'm going to start off talking about the actual acquisition process, and where I think people make the number one mistake, Will, is we work so hard to market to these deals, to get these people in our pipeline. And then when we have somebody on the phone, you have to think of all the hard work that went into that. I pulled a list, I skip traced a list, I cold called that list. The guy raised his hand, he said yes, I passed it to my CRM. And now you have an acquisition manager that's giving this person a call and saying, hey, are you interested in selling your house? Oh, no? Okay, cool. And hangs up.
Right.
I believe the number one issue that acquisitions agents have is they try to overqualify properties too quickly. I know that was something that was going on in my business for a long time. It's something that actually Will pointed out maybe a year ago. I remember we were having dinner and you're like, dude, your acquisition guys are overqualifying. And ever since I started like thinking on that, the difference was astronomical. So what's like your advice? I mean, most people here, I'm assuming, are like kind of like entry level to mid in their wholesale business. What would be your advice to them when they have these leads, and how to handle these leads, how to properly intake them after they've entered their CRM?
Yeah, so look, there's a few things, all right? So let's go back to the beginning. We need to first establish what is the beginning step of the acquisition process. We're taking apart the data side, which is the pre-step to acquisition. Data is what you pull, what lists you're getting, skip tracing it, where are you skip tracing it, where does that data go in your database, what's the start of that process. For example, are you taking that data, you're uploading it into Launch Control and you're doing text blasts? Okay, well, that's one channel, right? And then are you taking that data and you're sending it off to a cold call center, or you're doing cold calls on your own, right, through a dialer? Is it a triple line dialer? Is it, there's a lot of things that go into that. Are you taking that data and are you sending it to a mail house and then sending them a postcard, right? What type of postcard? That's all data. That's a separate subject. Where acquisition starts, for me in my business, is we need to identify what is a lead, right? And a lead in my business is anyone who raises their hand and has some level of interest of selling. Now, we can argue this point 10 different ways. I've done this for the last 6 years in a number of different ways. You can, call it a qualified lead. Okay, this is a person that matches our buy box or is within range, right? maybe it's 50K below the Zillow value. There's times where we used to do it like that, right? There's a lot of different metrics that you can use. And it also depends on what market you're in. Primarily, everybody's going to be in South Florida here. So for me, the beginning of this conversation is going to be, what is a lead? So be very clear on, in your business, what does a lead mean? To some people, some friends of mine, a lead is only a lead until they're within the striking price of their model, of their buy box, right? To me, that's not a, you know, I qualify a lead already way before that. If I'm having a conversation with you, if you're, you know, below the Zillow value, we're talking, we're discussing the property, discussing the problems, you're now going through my sales funnel, which is my acquisition funnel, meaning that you're going to move from here down. The more questions I ask, the more we talk about it, the more descriptive I get, the deeper our conversation gets, whether it's on day one or it's follow-up 6, 7 times of speaking to you, 10 times, 15 times of speaking to you. Every single time, that should be a better conversation, and it should get you a step closer. You're finding out more about the property. You're finding out more about the problem. It's really not about the property, guys. Always remember that. It's about the problem. You're on the phone with this individual because it's not their property is what they're selling you. The problem is really what you're buying. The bigger the problem, the bigger your payday should be. It's a direct correlation. I say that all the time. So if I'm resolving a double probate with a tax delinquent and a violation on the property, I'm absolutely stealing this property. I'm not paying anywhere near what my 70%, 65% of ARV would be. So that's where my process starts. And then what happens to that lead once it goes into the funnel? Who's the first point of contact? And again, you can do this 10 different ways. I've done it where I've had VAs field the leads, right? Or pre-qualify them on the way in, right? The way that I have my business set up is that we have a cold call company that has about 8 or 9 cold callers. They're just dialing all day through a massive amount of, you know, data. I have about 400,000 people in my data set because it's the whole state of Florida at this point. But that's all they're doing. And they're qualifying people. And they're looking for 1 to 3 of these a day per rep that are going to raise their hand and say, yes, I have some level of interest. They did not say no. Let's just leave it simple. They didn't say no. Or they didn't say, F you. They didn't say, get off the phone, don't call me anymore, I'm on the do not call list, right? We take those out immediately. Other than that, somebody said yes, now it moves to the next step. Now it moves to the nurture, now we're talking about it. Obviously, if it's a hot lead, now we can get into that, right? How are you gonna qualify these leads? Is it a cold lead? Is it a warm lead? Is it a hot lead, right? Keep it 3, keep it to those 3, it'll be more simple for you, especially when you're first starting out. A hot lead is obviously somebody that's ready to go, they're saying all the right things, they're within the same, you know, price striking range that you want right off the bat. They're more rare, obviously, but if you get one of those, you can't waste time. You need to absolutely drill that down. You should be getting an agreement over the phone, or you should be there that same day or the next day to see that property and go with an agreement physically, right? I cannot stress enough to not waste time.
Do you you guys go to appointments without having the contract signed?
Do we go to appointments without having a contract signed?
Yeah, like in person?
Sometimes it's very rare, only if the seller absolutely wants to meet somebody at the property.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one thing that I know we wasted a lot of time on in the beginning. But now our process is almost 100% virtual. We don't go to the properties unless we have it signed. Obviously, there's some exceptions. Sometimes you have older people that don't trust the internet or what's the email. So those people you make exceptions for. But yeah, I just wanted to ask about that just to make sure you're doing it the same.
Yeah, like 92% of my business is virtual. We're gonna lock them up over the phone. If it is an in-person appointment, we simply let the seller know, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, I have no problem and I totally understand what you're saying. So first of all, this is an acquisition. We're talking today about acquisition, so we're gonna talk about some sales, right? First of all, what I'm doing when I'm talking to an individual, a seller, a prospective seller, etc., I am mirroring that person. I am validating them first. I'm saying, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I absolutely understand the internet is a crazy place. I have no problem meeting you at the property. With that being said, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, just know that I do view a lot of properties every single day. Full disclosure for you, no pressure. I am coming out there with an agreement And my intention is to leave with an agreement signed because I'm there to buy the property. I'm not there to view the property. I will see the property and I'll see what it's about, and we can definitely get to know one another. But just so you're aware, and there's no surprises, we're going to have a conversation about the property, but I am there, keep in mind, to buy this property. My intention is to go out there. And another thing that I've used a lot on in-person appointments or on the phone appointments, which is a killer thing to say. When I have a seller giving me some objections, I let them know. I say, hey, listen, I totally understand. You need to think about it. Just please keep in mind, I'm on my way to view 2 more properties today. And I wish I had as much money as Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. You can use whichever one you want. I just don't. So my money is accounted for. And if one of those individuals says yes, I'm going to go ahead and ink that deal. And if I do, there's a strong possibility that I might not be able to buy yours. So you absolutely sure that there's nothing we can do here today. And I'll throw that right back at them. So most of the times that works. It's scarcity. You're removing it. You're going negative. And now they want to chase you for it. So now there's a whole different conversation. So that's just a little nugget. You can use that on the phone or you can use that in person. It works a lot better in person because you have physical rapport already built. On the phone works just the same. But yeah, we're locking everything up pretty much virtual.
Yeah, so that FOMO is something that we use that's definitely been big in the business. But another thing that, going back to the overqualifying thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that to me is crazy is how people give offers over the phone in less than 10 minutes. The fact, the opening of the phone, right? All right, imagine this. I'm calling you in the middle of your day, Will. You're at your office. You receive a call. Hey, man, are you interested in selling your house? You're not there waiting like, oh my God, Henry, I'm so happy you called me about my house, bro. Thank God. That's not the case, guys. So I think the most important thing and the most often overlooked thing is the introduction and the having a sales process, right? Ever since we implemented that, I started looking at my calls so differently because the introduction and that lead up to when you do give the offer is how you disarm the seller. If every time you call somebody, you ask them, hey, seller, why are you looking to sell? People don't walk into car dealerships and say, hey, I'm here and I'm not going to walk out until I leave with a brand new car. Because what's going to happen? You're going to get screwed because you're showing all your cards at once. Sellers are not that stupid. You got to actually dig and try to find that, which is, I believe, a huge mistake that acquisitions guys make. They ask, what's your motivation for selling the property? Like, oh, I'm not really motivated. And they take that for face value. It's not just that. It's about digging and using rapport the correct way. Because you could use rapport and you could call somebody and ask them, hey, did you watch the soccer game today? Yeah. Okay, cool. That was fun, wasn't it? 4-1, Portugal. Good job. That rapport is meaningless. Now, if you use rapport by asking the seller, hey, is this a family-oriented community? And you get the seller to say, yeah, my daughter, there's a school right across the street where my daughter went and whatever. And then you're like, oh, so you have a daughter. I have a son. I was just blessed with that, a year and a half old, whatever. And now you find out, oh yeah, my daughter, she just turned 21 years old and she got accepted to FSU. So she's moving to FSU. Okay, so it's going to be just you and your husband? Yeah, just me and my husband live here. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom property, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. You just identified it. They're empty nesters. They need to downsize. And that same person was the person that told you, no, I'm not motivated. But
Correct.
now you know they need the money to put their kid through FSU. They need to downsize because they have 3 empty bedrooms. And you got through it through a different avenue.
Right. And all what Henry's talking about 100% is there's different levels of rapport. There's different levels of tonality. There's different levels of mirroring is a great sales tactic. So for example, if I'm talking to a person who's a little bit loud, speaks a little bit fast, I'm going to kick up my tempo and my voice is going to get higher. If I'm talking to an older lady who's literally talking like this and she's very slow and she's very poised, I'm going to lower my voice and I'm going to speak to her tone. And because people like themselves. That's a fact. It's proven human nature. So if you're not getting enough rapport, if you're not getting enough out of a seller, it simply means that you're just not at that point in that conversation to have the trust factor in that relationship. That's what it means. There's no right, there's no wrong. You just got to get there. So the sooner you can get to that comfort and that trust, the sooner that you can actually move through the sales process.
So talking about mirroring, right? I think I'm a believer that everything in life is sales. And when you and your wife are trying to negotiate, where are we going to have dinner tonight? You're trying to get your way. She's trying to get her way. Sometimes you give if you're smart. But
Yeah.
that is a negotiation, right? And mirroring, right? One of the tactics that you just referenced, this could be used, guys, when you're building relationships with wholesalers, if you're a fix and flipper. This could be used when you're doing on-market acquisition and you're talking to realtors. We
Yep.
have to think every time we're on the phone with a prospect, whether it is a realtor that you're buying a deal off the MLS, whether it is a wholesaler, if you're buying the property as a fix and flipper, your best bet is to become relatable and to become friends with that person. Because you either do the deal with somebody that you like or somebody that's a douchebag, you have more chances of getting the deal done if you become likable to that person. So
Yeah.
when people look at acquisitions, they think, oh, this is only off market if I'm receiving cold call deals. Guys, everything in life is sales, and all these tactics could be used, you know, in anything. And negotiations about dinner with your wife, man, that fucking granular you could get with it.
Yeah, and you know, let's move into another point here, right? With acquisition, one of the biggest things is people think, and take it from me, guys, you know, spending over $1 million a year in marketing, right? I've trialed and errored pretty much everything you can possibly think of, and I'm just saying that not to impress you, but more to just like impress upon you that I've tried the shit out of almost everything you can think of, right? At a very expensive rate. So one thing that acquisitions, or a lot of people don't talk about in acquisitions, is consistency, right? So one very, very key thing of acquisition is most people think acquisition works like this. I put out a bunch of marketing, things come in, I start talking to people, I buy houses. That's not at all how it works. It works like that maybe 2-3% of the time, maybe. And those are great. They're awesome. If you do enough marketing, by the way, you're going to have those very often. It's all like a little volume knob. It's all relative to the amount of scale that you're doing. But where the bulk of acquisitions is, and where the reality of acquisitions is, I'm going to put out a bunch of stuff. It's going to come into my funnel, meaning I'm going to generate these leads. Once it generates the lead, how am I, you know, decompressing or distilling that lead? What am I doing with it? And then what's your process? Once somebody raises their hand and they are now a lead and they go into your funnel, it's now your responsibility as to what are you going to do? What's your sales process? What's your follow-up process? How sticky are you going to stay with that lead until that lead converts or sells to someone else or falls off? Okay, or list it, etc. We can get into that in a little bit, things that you can pivot around, innovations, whatever, and all these different strategies. But for the purposes of this call, it's going to be acquisition. So consistency is huge. How are you going to stick to that lead? How, when you're small, make it simple, right? Hey, I make, back in the day when I was using Podio and it was a 2-man band, it was manual notes. Hey, reminder, call this person in 2 days. Boom. And then I'd have 20, 30 follow-ups to do in a day. And I would follow up with 20, 30 people and I would go with that. And then I would retake the notes and, you know, okay, well, this person said this time. All right, well, they're still going through the eviction or this and that, whatever. And I would notate it and then I would stay sticky with them. And in 2-3 days, hey, Mr. Seller. Oh yeah. How's your dog doing? Oh my God. Yeah.
How many times you've opened up the email and everything?
Sorry, Will?
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. That's the kind of, can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that you need to be very, very conscientious of. And when you scale a team and you got 5, 6, 7 people doing that for you, then that gets even more tricky. So you need to have follow-up systems, you need to have schedules, you need to have KPIs to track, etc. But once a lead gets into your funnel, the moral of the story is it's now your responsibility to stick with that lead through your sales process, whatever it is, and until that lead converts. make no mistake about it, they will convert. And by convert, I mean, are they going to list it? Are they going to pull it off the market, meaning they're no longer interested in selling? Are they going to sell to you? Are they going to sell to a wholesaler? Are they going to sell to a fix and flipper? Are they going to sell to a family friend? Are they going to figure out this tenant issue? Are they going to figure out their violations? Are they going to get divorced? Are they not going to get divorced? I mean, there's a lot of things. Are they out of state? Are they going to leave it vacant? Is there now a squatter? I mean, I could keep going on and on and on and on. So the point is, it's up to you to stick with them because they will convert one way or another. And that's where you got to be sticky and be annoying about it almost. I'm the first person to say that.
So follow up, yeah, is everything. You want to be, I rather lose a sale for being too pushy than lose a sale because I was scared of scaring away the seller.
Till this day, I've never lost a sale for being too pushy. I've had people tell me, man, you are relentless. You are fucking annoying. And I'd be like, great. So I did my job. So when can I come by the house?
Yeah, so that comes back to the funnel, bro, and the importance of the follow-up. Because guys, especially when you're starting and you don't have these systems in place, it's very easy to just call that lead. Oh, he's not interested, get discouraged and lose track of it. Just to show you guys how important follow-up is, I have 2 acquisition managers, but I have 3 junior acquisition managers. Junior acquisition managers do cold follow-up. I invest more manpower in cold follow-ups than I do in straight up intake of new leads. That is because I have a CRM with over 10,000 leads that if I don't hire these 3 junior acquisition managers and remarket to these sellers until they buy or sell, I'm losing money because the conversion is not the day that the lead comes in. Like my good friend Will says, conversion is 4.5 months from first point of contact.
4.3. It's close.
4.3, sorry. 4.37.
Yeah. And listen, here's the thing too. One thing that I've learned over scaling, to multiple 7 figures, I always used to think, hey, the solution to my problem is generate more leads. I need to generate more leads. I need to generate more leads. No, it wasn't the solution. It was more of a symptom. Like, yes, of course, as you scale, you need more leads, right? Leads is the lifeline of your business, especially our business, right? Any business, really. You can't do anything without sales. You can't do, I'll answer that in a second, Corey. You can't do anything without sales, right? And the cure to any business is sales, period. If you're having a shitty month, go buy and sell more, period. You're just going to generate revenue. But the point is going deeper with your pipeline and making sure that you're converting at a pretty high level with what you already have and at the rate that it's coming in, meaning, not to get too complicated, but let's simplify this. Let's just say my business generates, wherever stage you are, but let's just say your business is generating 30 leads a week, right? That's 120 leads a month. That's pretty fair for a 1 or 2 man operation. You can easily run that with 1 person. Easy, easy, easy. Ask me how I know. So if I'm doing that, then I need to make sure, okay, is my bandwidth, meaning can I continue to take on 30 new leads every week and continue to stay with my follow-up? Is the answer yes? Is the answer no? Because eventually you're going to stack on new leads and new leads and new leads and new leads. And guess what's going to happen to the old ones? They're going to fall by the wayside. If you don't have a follow-up system, or if you don't have a team, junior acquisition in Henry's case, you're screwed because they will convert to someone else. Because someone else, think about it this way, guys. Someone else everybody else is marketing to these people. So you might have had a conversation today, and let's say that Henry's not going to convert for a month. I have a conversation with Henry week 1, week 2, week 3. I missed it. Week 4. Someone's going to come. I'm going to come along. I'm going to have a conversation with Henry. First conversation, Henry was ready to convert. I was there. Boom. End of story. He will come back in week 5, and Henry's going to say, oh, no, man, I sold to somebody else. And you're like, what? What do you mean? And if you check your follow-up, you weren't there. Why? Because you didn't have the bandwidth to do so. So that's a huge way to not burn yourself. So don't fall into the mistake or the myth of, I need a lot more new leads in order to get revenue. No, you need to drill down on your leads and drill down on your current pipeline to convert revenue and control the amount of new leads that come in at that pace and be able to keep up with both. And then you'll start noticing, hey, I need to hire somebody. Oh, why? Because I can't handle this bandwidth anymore. So now I'm going to start losing money. Cool. So hire somebody, train them, do the follow-ups. Okay, you take on follow-ups, I'll take on new lead intake. Or I'll take on the super hot ones. When you follow up and they're hot and ready to convert, transfer it over to me, live transfer, I'll close it. Right? That's a revenue generating activity. So that's what you got to focus on. But generating more leads, it's mental gymnastics. You feel like you're doing more, but you're really not. You're actually doing yourself a disservice. I hope that made sense.
I'm gonna give you guys a good story to show the importance of follow-up, and then we'll start answering some questions. But this is a deal. I send out an SMS campaign. It's the first time that I market out to this list. This was back in 2020. I market to the list. Seller calls us back, and the seller says, hey man, I know you guys have been following up with me for over a year now, but now I'm ready to sell. That was the first time that we SMS that list. It was not us that was following up with that person.
Correct.
We say, yeah, of course, we spoke last month, just playing it off. Good actors, right? You have to be a good actor if you're going to be in sales. So we tell him, yes, whatever, you play it off. Turns out we put the property under contract for $135,000. It's a 3-2 in Miami Gardens. We fixed and flipped it ourselves. We made over $200,000 on that deal. Somebody else was following up with that guy for a year, but we got him right when the time was right. It was a probate deal, and it was that's just luck. But that shows the importance of catching the right lead at the right time.
I'll chime into Henry's point, and I'll use a very, very personal example. So last year, my business did over 130 deals, right? Here's what happens when you don't follow up, and here's what happens when your sales process or the bandwidth was too high. We were rocking and rolling so much. I went back a few months ago and I checked the last 12 months of data, canceled deals, right? Conversations, whatever, that didn't come to fruition. What I found at the volume of my business was that I missed out on $2 million in revenue to people who sold, and that's where the 4.3 month number comes in. So literally $2 million walked right out the door because we weren't there at the right time. We didn't follow up. We weren't with the right systems, processes. And yes, I have a really badass system and process set up, but the bandwidth just wasn't there because we were paying attention to the easy deals first. So my team became complacent and they didn't follow up with that. $2 million out the window. That is a real world example. And if you ever want to feel like you got kicked in the face, that's a really good way to do it. I wouldn't recommend it, but that was my example and it sucked. It sucked. And you look back and I had a sample size of about 100 deals. So out of the 100 deals, I think if I remember correctly, 60% of them converted. So 60 other deals happened, right? So my business would have done north of 200 if that was the case, right? 200 deals for the year if I'd have been there. Now, you can't be there every single deal, every single time, right? You're not going to win every single one. But I certainly could have mitigated at least 50% of that and made another 30 deals happen, which would have been an extra $1 million in revenue. Who doesn't like an extra $1 million, right? Annually, just because. And it was leads that, keep this in mind, leads that I already paid for, the marketing was paid for, the follow-up was paid for, the employee's time was paid for, it's already in the CRM. I mean, everything was already spent. This isn't, meaning this was not a new activity, guys. It wasn't something that I had to go out and regenerate something. It was something that was already in my system, in my funnel. All I had to do was stick with it. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I think that's it's one of the biggest, it's the easiest mistake to make when you scale quickly, because I know I made a very similar one. But Will, let's start answering some questions. So yeah. Solomon asked, is there a specific list you guys have seen that are good in this market since homeowners are locking low mortgage before it got ridiculously high? So I mean, right now, I personally have given lowest priority to my owner occupied list. I'm trying to market to absentee list as much as possible because yes, a very real objection is I locked in a 3% interest rate. Where am I going to move to? So it doesn't mean you're not going to do a deal off of an owner occupied because there always are crazy circumstances. But I am focusing more on absentee data and just make sure you slap some pain on there versus calling owner occupied.
Yeah, listen, Solomon, I think you and I have spoken about this in the past. The best list is gonna be whatever you stay consistent with, right? But yes, I would probably start, if I was in your shoes, I would start with non-owner occupied, some equity, right? Out of state. If you want to, it could be non-owner occupied in state or non-owner occupied out of state. I'd probably go out of state, some pretty high equity to make sure that the deal can be done so you don't run into like a short sale scenario or anything like that. That's what I would focus on. High equity, the pain point just isn't there. Yes, they sell, of course, but high equity should really be a later case resort, not immediately, because the motivation just isn't there. Like high equity is what we started marketing to high equity when we ran out of data and we started scaling and we needed more data. So
Yeah, I mean, my equity filter back when the market was appreciating so crazy, it got as low as like 25%. You definitely
I had dropped it to 15.
Yeah, you don't want to be pulling that now though. In a depreciating market, you want to
Correct.
drop that on your list. So keep that in mind. I would probably pull 40% if you could maintain that smaller level of data, How do you increase your follow-up rate with the seller? Example, if you follow up with the seller, how do you make sure they pick up the next time?
The answer to that question, and I'll take this one, Henry, if you don't mind. There is no real answer to that question. There's gonna be sellers that's why you gotta act, and you gotta strike while the iron's hot. So if you do have a very motivated seller, don't ever, 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 like for example, if I'm speaking to a seller on a Wednesday or Thursday, and they're like, yeah, I can do it next Monday. No. It's your job to make sure that you get to that house tomorrow or today, if you can. Don't let it go over the weekend. They're only going to tell you that because that's another objection. They're only telling you that because they feel uncomfortable and they just don't have the trust or the rapport built with you. And then the next guy's going to come along or girl, build the right rapport. And guess what? They're going to be at the house the next day and they're going to get that thing under contract. So don't ever believe a seller at face value. I cannot stress that enough. Sellers in our business, no offense towards anybody, it's just been proven time and time again for me. They are not truthful. Think about it this way. They are in their shoes talking to you because of a reason. So don't believe everything at face value. Do some more digging, be a little bit pushy, make sure that you get in front of sellers. But the best thing that you can do, I mean, things that you can do to like kind of mitigate that, use different numbers, call them from different numbers, right? You can have a burner phone, you can have smartphone, you can have dial pad, you can have call rail with a bunch of different numbers. Make sure that you're rotating those numbers so you don't get spam. Text them and call them. I do something called the double tap. So if I call you once, I'm going to call you right after again, and I'm going to hit you with a text. So I'm going to keep doing that every single day. We call it 10 days of hell in our business, where if a lead is not reachable, we make sure that they go through 6 to 8 calls every single day for 10 days until they answer. And then they fall into like a long-term follow-up sequence, and that's a whole nother conversation. But that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to call the sellers out for what it is. So we don't like to hang up the phone until we have the contract actually signed. So we'll walk the seller through the contract and make sure we receive it back signed. There's a couple tricks. So I'll be like, hey, Mr. Seller, I sent you the agreement. Did you receive it? Don't send them shit. If they say they did receive it, then you know they're lying. Call them out on that stuff. And if a seller agrees to everything, use the FOMO. Tell them, hey guys, look, unfortunately, I have to set these funds aside for 24 hours. If we don't make a decision today, we're not going to be able to move forward. Odds are, if you don't get that person to sign that day, they weren't ready to sign anyway. So you lacked rapport, or you lacked digging a little bit deeper. This goes on market as well. We've lost deals on market where the seller tells us verbally, agrees to our contract. We say, oh, fuck it, forget to follow up. We follow up tomorrow. And then the seller got cold feet, or the realtor got cold feet and advised otherwise, or another offer came in. So don't be afraid to be as pushy. Let's say the word pushy, both on the on-market side and the off-market side. And as a buyer with wholesalers, guys, you got to be intense. Sales are sales all across the board. This is not only apply to off-market deals.
When I'm going after a deal, I'm like a dog with a bone. I don't give a shit. You would think it's my first house that I've ever bought, right? I do it professionally. I do it, you know, in a different way now, but man, I'm dog with a bone. I will not stop until I get that deal, you know, or I'm going to leave everything out on the field. You know what I mean? And another thing, if you're sending out a contract, let's say if I'm sending out a DocuSign, let's just say virtually, right? As soon as I send that DocuSign, I call the seller, right? Or my team is trained to call the seller, and we are going to walk them through. Hey, Mr. Seller, oh, you got it? Great. Would you mind just opening it for me for a second? Yeah, let's just review the document. Let's see if you have any questions or anything like that. We can handle them over the phone. So I'm taking live objections as they're going through the contract. I'm not sending a contract just saying, oh yeah, just sign it when you can. No. I'm going to get on the phone with you. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to say, yep, that little yellow box, that's the first initial. Go ahead and click that. Okay, cool. Oh, you have a question about the escrow? Okay, let me answer that right now. Boom. Objection, you know, obliterated. Next one. Boom, contract signed. Now the contract's signed, call's over. Now I'm good to go. I don't just leave it out there. You know what I mean? Those little things are huge because somebody can come along, and if they're a little bit more pushy than you or a little bit more likable or whatever, you're going to lose that deal. And that sucks.
Yeah. You are not the only person marketing.
No. No.
And the best sales guy is going to win. So
Yeah.
Corey asks if 4.3 months differ from inbound leads to outbound leads.
Yeah, so the 4.3 months was properties that I already had under contract that were canceled, that within 4.3 months of that is when they made a decision. So a seller, 65% of the time or something like that out of the 100, a seller made a decision to sell within 4.3 months. And they actually, I fact checked them myself with the property appraiser and all that. So it was actually closed sale and it was a cash transaction. So it wasn't theory, or it wasn't like they tried to list it and they took it down. No, like a transaction actually opened and closed, meaning that deal was done. And that was the 4.3 months.
And that's the average between both types of leads, right?
Correct. I mean, that would definitely be a warm lead versus a cold outbound. Cold outbound is going to be a little bit longer, but either way, statistically, people are going to convert within 5 to 6 months, whether they're cold or not, just in general. That's a wide statistic that varies by a lot of markets, but 4.3 months was in South Florida. I fact checked it against a bunch of my friends across the nation. They were pretty much tracking the same. They're like 4.5, 4.6. It was almost the same.
You still never give up on a lead though. I've closed leads 2 years after they came in, and that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I've made some of my biggest deals a year plus after follow-up for sure.
And today I was giving an example. I've had leads that have told me, delete my number. Call it back and you close that person. And
Yep.
it was a lead into land, and I was giving the example today to my team. That lead was in our CRM for like a year and a half before we closed it. And the first 3 conversations were like, dude, just give up on me. And we got them at the right time. So,
you know, it's crazy too. If you go back and you look at your conversations 3-4 months ago, especially right now in this market, 3-4 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, totally different market than what we're living in right now. And it's going to continue to shift downward that way. But if you look at your conversation from 3-4 months ago, seller was asking 350, 400, whatever, guarantee you when you talk to them today, that number is going to be different.
Yep.
Especially if they've been bounced around by a bunch of rookies or amateurs, a realtor, a wholesaler, of this, of that. They've been through the merry-go-round a few times. That's a great time to take advantage of that situation and to actually close a deal with the seller, especially if you have the confidence and the wherewithal to do so.
do you guys pull records from the county? I personally don't. So, Will, do you pull records directly from the county?
I do pull records directly from the county for certain lists. The rest of them, I buy my data from a bunch of different data sources, which I'm happy to share.
Yeah. How many leads to deal is it taking you guys in the current market? So I personally, right now, I'm focusing on cold calling. Last quarter, my cold call metric was the best it's ever been. It was 87 leads to a deal. I'm trying to be at around 100 leads to a deal on cold call. I expect it to get significantly worse. I don't have the metric for the quarter because that's when I truly look at it. Plus I'm making some changes on the acquisition side, but I'm expecting it to get significantly worse. I don't have the exact number.
The number is going to be north of 100. for sure in this current market. I wouldn't be shocked to see that number at like 125 or something. The leads, just for Marcelo here, just a little bit deeper on this point, the leads to deal is awesome, right? However, I would track the leads to the deal to the ROI, right? Because if it's taking me 300 leads, but my average deal size is 40K, well, I don't care. I'm going to figure out how to buy 300 more, 300 more, 300 more. And then you can get into the sales process and tighten things up and conversion here and conversion there. And well, we could have done this, well, we could have done that. And you can tighten that up and, bring it from, 200, whatever it is, 150, 100 down, right? 20, 30%. That's a big jump down. So if you can get from 100 to a 30% better conversion ratio, now you're at 70, it's a lot better, right? And then you got to look at your cost per lead. Is it $100? Is it $200? Right? On average in South Florida, you're probably spending about $175 a lead, give or take, at least, I would say, depending on your marketing channel, right? For direct mail, for us, it was around, the cost per lead was at the height, it was like 220, but it was a really hot market. But I didn't care. My average deal was 37K. So for me, I was like, man, I don't care. That's fine, right? And the conversion on direct mail is a lot better.
Yeah, so I'm going to chime in because tracking your ROI is more important than your lead to deal. Because my lead to deal cold calling, that's my bread and butter, right? I've been hovering around that 100 lead to deal phase, in and out, up and down, and sometimes we'll sharpen our skills a little bit and get a little bit better. But if you look at your ROI, you could have a worse ROI on pay-per-click where you're paying $160 per lead and you're converting 1 in 30 versus cold call where you're paying $30, $40 per lead and you're converting 1 in 120. When you look at your ROI, where does it make more sense to grow your business?
Correct.
So look at ROI.
And where you are in the stage of your business is very, very important. I think everybody, I know for a fact that when I was coming up, I did it myself. Comparison is the mother of all suffering. And a lot of people have looked at my business now and they're like, oh man, if only I could have it. I'm like, dude, you say that, but what you're not factoring in is how much I'm spending. You're not ready to have an 80K a month marketing bill, respectfully. It's different, right? It's a different conversation. So I got a lot of overhead. Right now I've trimmed up a lot. We've leaned out significantly, but it's different. More is not always better. I promise you that. Looking back at my last year doing 137 transactions, whatever it was awesome, but I would have much rather done less deals with a higher margin or done them better and netted more and spent less, right? Spending over $1 million in marketing last year. It's a lot of money, right? Now, we made a lot of money, but just keep in mind where you are in the cycle of your business is very, very important.
Yeah, tailor your business to what you can handle and don't take on marketing or don't take on initiatives your business is not ready for. Because I know I did that last year and I burned through a lot of money.
Yep.
All right, let me see. What was the next question?
Are you looking to other markets? I think the next question is, are you looking to other markets outside from Florida? Personally, I am not. There's more than enough money in Florida for me. We did $7 million last year in revenue, gross, and that was primarily the Tri-County area. So that was Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach. We did very limited deals in Tampa and Jacksonville, and some in like the Orlando area. But there's more than enough money in Florida, and I'm gonna also chime in with this point. What you could do deals in the whole state of Florida, but keep in mind it's all the same law, right? In the same state. Once you jump outside of your state, whether you're in Arizona and you're trying to get to Florida or Florida and you want to get to Arizona, dude, you're going to have to find a whole new title company. You're going to have to learn their laws. There's a lot of things that function here that don't function over there, right? MLS laws, municipalities, this, that, how evictions function. I mean, it's a lot of stuff and it's very, very complex, especially when you're starting out. I'd much rather dominate. I'm a very big believer of I'll dominate my backyard before I go anywhere else. That's just a me thing. I've seen people try it. Either way, I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but you're just adding a lot of complexity, really no reason.
Yeah, at the height of my business, by the way, I'm actually slimming down on the markets that I'm hitting in Florida. At the height of my business, I was producing 700 leads a month. We had over 50 cold callers, and we were marketing to everyone in Florida. And I did not feel the need of going into another state. So I don't, by the way, I don't plan on reaching that level of cold callers again, not in this market. I'm actually going to focus on primary and secondary markets that I truly believe in versus just trying to go Rambo, call everybody with high equity in Florida. So I'm not planning on leaving Florida anytime soon.
There's two types of approaches in this business, or in any business really. There's the shotgun approach and the sniper rifle approach. So if you can find a happy medium, I would recommend that. I lean more towards, I started as a sniper approach, 2-man band. We moved into the shotgun approach because we scaled so high. Now I'm more towards the middle, or maybe a little bit more towards the sniper approach. I like it better. You can make a lot more money that way. And staying in your state is definitely one good way to do it.
Yeah.
Next question. That's from a new combo with lead to close of escrow, the 4.3 months. No, so the 4.3 months, Corey, was I had something on their contract, we canceled it, and 4.3 months later, that seller converted with somebody else. Ryan is asking, is your process for SMS any different from cold call leads? Best practice advice for SMS. I wouldn't say that they're very, very different. So just keep this in mind. Texting is the lowest barrier to entry. Okay, it's what everybody's doing. It's the cheapest for a reason. It costs about 2 cents for a text, so it's very, very low. Meaning that everybody and their mother will try texting and will do texting at scale. I'm texting about 7,500 people a day, right? So keep that in mind. Cold calling is the same thing, right? Both of these marketing channels are a volume business. Okay, volume. You're gonna get a lot of shit before you get the one good thing. All right. There's different marketing strategies. For example, direct mail and PPC, where direct mail and pay-per-click is a very targeted approach, or a more targeted approach, and it is a totally different kind of lead. And as you scale your business and you notice the difference, I know that there's a huge difference just from experience, where I get a cold call lead, the seller that I'm speaking to, the seriousness of the conversation, the type of deal, the type of spread, the problem, right? Versus a text lead, versus a direct mail lead, versus a PPC lead. All different types of conversations, all different types of sellers, different professionalism required, just completely different, right? Different caliber of individual as well. But SMS it's something that you can throttle up. You got to follow up with all of them. You got to sift through a lot of crap. But immediately, SMS is the beginning of that lead. You should immediately try to convert that SMS into a phone call. Now, keep in mind, the SMS lead is talking to you via SMS because they don't want to talk to anybody. They prefer that marketing channel, right? For example, I'll give you a really good example. I've noticed that there's sellers that will call in from a postcard, right? This little beautiful thing right here. That's a seller that's going to call in there. That same seller is probably not going to take a cold call very well. They're not, or they're not going to respond back to a text. Vice versa. I've noticed a lot of sellers, I bought houses via text. I mean, literally text, couple texts back and forth, whatever. We agreed, send the contract signed, sold it, wholesale 30, 40 grand. Done. They didn't want to talk to anybody. They didn't want to call a postcard. They didn't believe in the postcard. They just wanted a text, right? And the same thing with cold calling. People that like to talk to people on the phone. Oh, I'm not going to call the stupid postcard. They're getting postcards anyway, right? And then there's other sellers that I send a letter to, like a really nice letter with a beautiful envelope, totally different kind of lead. Very serious, very professional, ready to move, right? It's less leads, but it's a higher quality of lead. So there's a balance there between the amount of leads that I'm getting or the quality of leads that I'm getting. Much rather, from experience, I'd much rather get less leads with a higher quality lead. And I'm willing to pay top dollar for that, because I know what the brain damage is of having to sift through 200-300 leads to get to 1 or 2. Right? It's all a numbers game.
So talking about that, and this is crazy, we closed the lead 100% through email. We never got the lady on the phone. She never answered our text messages, 100% through email. She got our, it was a PPC lead. We got her email. We called, texted, whatever, didn't answer. So we sent her an email with our proof of funds, a whole bunch of like credibility, right? And our website, a picture of us, a video of the office, like it was ridiculous, so that we would get her to answer. And 100% through email, we closed that deal. We've also closed deals 100% through text. And a mistake that I made is I would tell my acquisition guy, every time a text blast lead comes in, you call it. You call it.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Just reply to the text. Let the conversation flow. You do whatever the seller wants. Make it easy on them.
You've already remember this in marketing. The number one rule of marketing is to disrupt. If I've caught your attention, if I've sent you a text, I've sent you, I've cold called you and I've sent you direct mail and you respond back to a postcard, I'm going to talk to you on the phone. I'm not going to start to text you all of a sudden because I'm following your lead. You're the lead, no pun intended. I'm going to follow your lead. And I'm going to do that because I know for some reason you feel more comfortable that way. And that applies to any marketing channel, right? PPC leads want stuff today, right now, I'm ready. They're literally, think about it. They're typing into their computer, sell my house fast now. You pop up, you call. On average, that lead is going to convert within 5 to 7 minutes. That's a fact.
You
So
should.
if you're late to that party, it's gone because they're doing that to 10, 15 people. Whoever's the first to that race is usually going to win that race.
Yeah, you have, just think of it. You go there, you search, then you press back, next click, search, back, next one, search. Whoever answers first, that's the person that they're going to close with. You should be hitting PPC leads in 5 minutes. And that's a mistake that I made when I launched my PPC campaign. We were receiving way too many cold call leads for my bandwidth, as Will says. And I wasn't getting to those PPC leads in those 5 minutes. And I think I wasn't ready for a 20K PPC budget when I got there,
Very different.
So that's something that I'm going to make sure that I have in mind next time I think about bumping up my PPC so high, which by the way, right now is on pause because of December or whatever. But when we get back to it, I'm going to make sure I do it responsibly and not just, oh, big boom, let's triple our PPC budget, because you could throw away a lot of money, guys. And I'm telling you from experience.
Also, guys, just seriously, fun fact here. Pick a marketing channel that you can stick with consistently at the same level with no pauses for 120 days. Ideally for 6 months, 100 days is fine.
Yeah.
You need to understand that marketing is a delayed gratification game. Mostly, right? You can have leads that come in that convert right away. That's great, right? That's a good day in our business or in any business, right? They happen. That's a happy day. Most of them, though, are going to require follow-up. They're going to require nurture. They're going to require rapport building, right? So these things are going to take some time. So please just keep that in mind. One big mistake I see people make, well, I tried direct mail. It's a piece of shit. It doesn't work. I'm like, okay, well, how many people? Well, I mailed 5,000 people. Okay, how many times? No, I mailed 1 month and then I stopped because I didn't get enough calls. Like, well, that's why it doesn't work. That's exactly right. I'm mailing out 100,000 plus postcards every single month for the next year, no matter what happens, because I know year over year it's going to convert. So consistent. That's why I'm always saying consistency is key. Staying consistent with that marketing is huge, 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 huge. And you'll see a bigger bump in ROI if you do that, rather than start, stop, start, stop. That doesn't work when it comes to marketing.
And the best way to being consistent is to be ready to handle those leads. Do your research and be ready to service the lead the way it deserves to be serviced. Meaning direct mail leads, getting to them right away. Cold call leads, PPC leads, knowing you're going to get them within 5 minutes and that your closer is qualified to service that lead the way it needs to. So just food for thought. And guys, the whole point of this webinar is for us to be as open as possible, for us to give you the advice that we're literally living in our business. I'm being open here and telling you guys the mistakes that I've made so you learn from them and so you guys don't do the same, So by all means, this is the second. We have 5 more webinars that are gonna lead to a live event. The live event will be a free event on January 12th. It's gonna be educational event. We want you guys to show up, ask questions. The event's gonna be in Fort Lauderdale, and these webinars are gonna continue Tuesdays, 6 p.m. for 1 hour until that live event on the 12th.
That is correct.
To close
That
up,
is correct.
I think Corey has a question about direct mail cost per acquisition and cold call cost per acquisition. To be honest, I don't have those numbers in front of me. Will, I don't know if you know them off the top of your head.
Yeah, so again, Corey, the market's changed right now. It's getting more expensive, right? Because deals are not converting as they once were. PPC, I haven't done PPC in about 1.5 years, but if I recall correctly, it was around 4K per contract. Direct mail is definitely around, we were hovering around 4,300 per contract. Cold call was definitely less. I want to say it was probably around $1,500 a contract. It was significantly less, but all of those lead types had different ROIs and different spreads in the amount of profit that you would make on that deal.
Yeah, make sure you guys, when you're looking at your average deal size, you're looking at it per marketing strategy.
Correct.
Your ROI. Don't take a holistic approach to it. You have to break it down per marketing strategy because they're all different types of leads. You know,
Yes.
that's if there's anything that you learn from this webinar, it's that.
Yeah, and you got to track those things individually. You got to track them. You know, you should be tracking, not to get too crazy, but you should be tracking by list, by marketing channel, and by piece. For example, for direct mail, right? That's ideal. You do some split testing. I mean, you can get all crazy with this stuff, but yeah, I mean, we're gonna keep talking about this stuff for the next 5 weeks, give or take. We're gonna keep opening up everything that we have as far as our business. We're actually going through this on a day-to-day, and we're actually real operators. We're talking about things that we're doing daily. So we're not talking about what we did 5 years ago. These are things that are working real time, you know, December 6th of 2022.
Yep.
So we're going to keep talking about that. We're excited for the event in January. And, you know, after this call, if you want to share this, that's awesome on social media, anything like that, it's much appreciated. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me. You can DM Henry as well. If you want a JV on a deal, if you have a deal to JV, by all means, we love those. We're happy to help. And yeah, we're just real world operators. So we enjoy this.
Make sure you put it on your calendar. December 12th, it's going to be the event. We're going to give as much value as you can. We're going to have an actual rubric, a couple hours of content and some good networking. That's what this is all leading up to. Tell your friends about it. We want to be of as much value as we can. I think we got a lot of marketing questions. So how about we talk about marketing next event? Sound good, guys?
Great.
All right, we'll focus on marketing for next Tuesday. I will see you guys at 6 p.m. And I appreciate every single one of you for joining. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night, guys.